Most men think that losing muscle after 60 is just about looking softer in the mirror. They shrug it off when their arms don't fill the sleeves like they used to. They joke about their legs getting thinner, their pants fitting looser. They accept the changes quietly because they've been told it's normal. Just part of aging, right? But what if I told you that softening muscles might be the very reason you're waking up flat, feeling foggy, and wondering where the fire went? Because here's something we don't talk about enough: muscles don't just move your body. They signal it. They act like power stations, not just for strength, but for your brain, your blood, and your ability to stay a man in every sense of the word. Without enough muscle, your testosterone starts to slip. Your blood vessels stiffen. And the quiet engine that used to hum beneath your mornings? It grows quiet, too. It's not just about size. It's about flow. When you lose muscle, you don't just lose bulk, you lose circulation, you lose oxygen, you lose the ability to hold and direct the blood that makes you feel alive, alert, and intimately connected. I've seen it more times than I can count. A man comes in and says, "I'm just tired all the time," or "I'm here, but I don't feel present anymore," and 9 times out of 10, he's not broken. He's just shrinking silently from the inside out. I'm Dr. Catherine Rocker. And for more than 30 years, I've helped men rebuild their strength not by chasing youth, but by restoring the foundations their bodies are still waiting for. Not just in their arms or their legs, but deep in their blood, their nerves, their confidence. And today, I want to show you something simple, something powerful, and something no one is telling you. Muscle loss is stealing your erections, but you can take them back. Let me show you where it starts. Because the first signs aren't always physical. Sometimes, it begins with the quietest symptom of all: disconnection. It doesn't happen all at once. There's no alarm, no sharp pain, no dramatic collapse. Instead, it shows up in the little things: you push off the couch and feel a tremble in your thighs, you climb stairs slower than you used to, you grip a jar and wonder when your hands stopped being reliable. At first, you tell yourself it's just stiffness. Or maybe the weather. Or maybe you didn't sleep right. But then you notice other things. You don't feel the same when you wake up, not just in your head, but down there, too. The fullness is gone. The pressure. The quiet surge of energy that used to greet your mornings like clockwork now missing. And that's where most men go silent. Because they don't know how to name what's happening. They just know something's off. Disconnected. Dimmed. Here's the truth no one ever told you: muscle isn't just for movement. It's for circulation. It's a living tissue that pumps blood, holds blood, and signals hormones. When you lose muscle, especially in the legs, the core, and the pelvic floor, you lose the very scaffolding that supports your erections. The body literally can't deliver or sustain the blood where it's needed because the system that once held it in place is no longer strong enough, and when muscle loss continues, your body makes less testosterone because it senses less demand. Nitric oxide, that powerful molecule that tells blood vessels to open, also declines because your endothelium gets lazy when your muscles don't move. It's a slow unraveling. You feel more tired, less sharp, less motivated. You stop initiating intimacy, not because you don't want it but because deep down, you fear your body won't respond when called. This is where most men either retreat or they decide to return. Because once you understand that the enemy isn't age but atrophy, you can begin to rebuild. You can start small. And you can come back strong. And if you're still unsure, let me tell you about Robert, a 68-year-old mechanic from Texas who thought it was too late, until 3 small changes helped him stand taller, breathe deeper, and feel like a husband again. Robert was the kind of man who rarely talked about himself. He had worked with machines his whole life. 68 years old, retired from a diesel repair shop in Central Texas, a man who could fix any engine but had grown silent in front of his reflection. He came into my office not with a complaint, but with a question that weighed heavier than any diagnosis. He said, "Doc, I still love my wife. But I feel like there's a wall between us now. And the strange part is, I think the wall is me. He wasn't sick, he wasn't frail, but he was tired. Not the kind of tired you fix with sleep, but the kind that settles in the bones, that whispers to you during moments that used to feel natural. He no longer reached for his wife's hand. He stopped joking at dinner. He didn't remember the last time he felt desire, not because it wasn't there, but because his body didn't seem to know how to carry it anymore. I asked him about his routine. He told me he used to walk around the shop a lot, up and down, crawling under trucks, lifting parts, but since retirement, his days had become still. Most mornings were spent seated. Most nights ended with a beer and a heavy dinner. His legs had thinned, his lower back ached, and he said the words most men only whisper, "I don't feel like a man anymore." And I'm scared to admit that. Because I don't even know what that means now. But it wasn't shame that brought him in. It was love. He missed laughing with his wife. He missed feeling close to her, not just physically, but with that invisible thread that once tugged at him when she walked into a room. We didn't start with a prescription. We started with a simple invitation, to move again, not like he did at 30, but like someone who remembered he was still living. I gave him 3 changes. Each one small, each one simple, but together they formed a message. He was to stand up every hour and do 5 slow squats to his chair, just deep enough to feel his legs catch him. He was to add 1 evening meal with protein, healthy fat, and magnesium, nothing fancy, just real food to feed his muscles while he slept. And he was to breathe. Each night, lying on his back, 1 hand on his belly, inhaling slowly through the nose for 4 seconds, holding for 2, exhaling through the mouth for 6-10 rounds. No gym. No machines. No pressure. Just a signal sent back into his body that he still wanted to live inside it. 2 weeks passed, and he called. Not to say everything was fixed, but to say he had stood up one morning, looked at his wife pouring coffee, and felt a current he hadn't felt in years. He said, "I didn't touch her. I didn't need to." She turned, looked at me, and said, "There you are." And that's the moment I knew. Robert hadn't just awakened his muscles. He had returned to his place in his life. The body knows how to come back, not with force, but with rhythm. Not with shame, but with softness. And not with promises, but with practice. In the next part, I'll show you exactly what Robert did, so you can begin your return starting not with the past, but with the muscles that still remember how to hold your future. What brought Robert back wasn't some overnight miracle. It was rhythm. It was oxygen. It was a return to signaling, because that's what muscle is, a messenger. Muscle doesn't just lift and move. It tells your brain, I'm still here. I still matter. Keep the hormones flowing. Keep the blood moving. So we didn't ask Robert to become an athlete. We asked him to re-enter his body through 3 simple, intentional acts. They weren't dramatic. But they were powerful. And they worked because they restored the very conditions that allow arousal to exist. Step 1. The chair squat, 15 slow reps a day. Every hour that Robert was awake, he stood up from his chair and slowly lowered himself back down 5 times, no rush, no momentum, just slow control. The goal wasn't speed. It was a signal. When you squat, even shallowly, you awaken the largest muscles in the body: glutes, quads, hamstrings, all of which are connected to blood flow in the pelvis. Each movement presses blood upward, encourages nitric oxide release, and stimulates the pelvic floor muscles, the ones that quietly hold erections in place. And over time, the nervous system remembers, this is how we stay ready. Step 2. The dinner plate reset. 1 meal to build muscle while you sleep. Robert's old dinners were heavy in starch, fried in oil, and lacking in the nutrients that support male hormones. So we changed that. 1 simple meal: boiled eggs, sautéed spinach, lentils, half an avocado, and a few slices of banana. It sounds too humble to matter. But that meal gave his body protein, to build muscle, magnesium, to support testosterone, and potassium, to help regulate blood pressure. And perhaps more importantly, it gave his body permission to rebuild overnight. Because muscle growth doesn't happen in the gym. It happens in sleep if you feed it. Step 3. The bedtime breath, syncing muscle and blood with the nervous system. Before bed, Robert would lie on his back, hand on his belly, and practice 10 rounds of slow breathing, inhaling through the nose for 4 seconds, holding for 2, exhaling through the mouth for 6. No noise. No strain. Just a signal sent to his vagus nerve, telling the body, you are safe. You can repair. You can open. This breathwork increased parasympathetic tone, reduced cortisol, and helped keep his blood vessels flexible, especially in areas where stiffness had become the norm. These 3 steps did not take hours. They did not require equipment or expertise. They only required attention. Attention to the muscles that had gone silent, and to the signals that had been ignored. And after a few days, his legs ached in a way that reminded him he still had them. His sleep deepened. His mornings grew warmer. His confidence returned, not all at once, but like a sunrise, quiet, sure, and undeniable. Next, I'll walk you through what Robert began to feel after 7, 14, and 30 days, because this isn't just about results. It's about the return of rhythm. And when the rhythm comes back, so does the man. The first thing Robert noticed wasn't in the mirror. It was in the way he sat down. 7 days into his new rhythm, he called and said, I didn't groan when I lowered into the chair today. And I stood back up without grabbing the table. It sounds simple. It sounds small. But to a man who had quietly accepted weakness, that one moment felt like a declaration, my body is still mine. By the end of the first week, his sleep had deepened. He no longer tossed and turned. He no longer woke up to use the bathroom twice. And perhaps most importantly, he began waking with a quiet pressure, a familiar fullness that had been missing for months. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't demand attention. But it was there, soft, steady, waiting. After 14 days, the changes reached deeper. He said, my thinking is quicker. My mood is better. And my wife, she kissed me on the neck this morning, and I didn't flinch. I didn't feel embarrassed. I just felt there. That moment was more than affection. It was circulation. It was oxygen flowing to the brain and blood flowing to the pelvis. It was muscle holding posture and confidence without trying to perform. It was presence returning to a man who thought he had faded too far. At 30 days, his language changed. He didn't talk about the body anymore. He talked about being. He said, I walk taller now, not because I'm stronger, but because I feel seen by her, by myself, by the world. He didn't need more muscle. He needed the muscle that mattered, the kind that holds blood, carries breath, and whispers to the nervous system, you're safe. You're strong. You're home. His erections were no longer the goal. They were the signal that his body was flowing again, that his spirit had re-entered the room. And his wife noticed. Not in performance. But in energy. In tone. In the way he listened again. In the way he reached for her hand, not out of duty, but because the connection had returned. 30 days. 3 small steps. 1 man back in his life. And if that feels far from where you are now, I want you to hear me clearly, you're not broken. You're not too late. You're not past repair. You've simply been disconnected from your muscle, from your flow, from your rhythm. But that rhythm can return. And it begins not with effort but with permission. Next, I'll share with you what this journey really means, not just for your body, but for the man inside it who's been waiting to come back home. There's something most men over 60 need to hear, not from a textbook, not from a pharmaceutical ad, but from someone who has sat across from them, looked them in the eyes, and seen what happens when strength goes silent. You have not lost your ability. You have simply been starving the very system that supports it. You see, your erections were never just about arousal. They were never just about testosterone or mood or attraction. They were about blood. And blood doesn't move without muscle. When the system that delivers, holds, and supports flow begins to fade, your confidence fades with it. But not because you're broken. Because your body is incredibly smart and it responds to what you give it. If your days are filled with stillness, if your meals are empty of what your muscles crave, if your breath is short and tight and stuck in your chest, your body hears that. And it adjusts. It begins to conserve. To withhold. To shut down what it no longer believes is needed. And that includes circulation to the places that once defined your manhood. But here's the truth that no one tells you: the body never forgets. Even after months, even after years, your system still knows how to recover. Your blood still knows where to go. Your muscle still knows how to grow. Your mind still knows how to respond. It's not gone. It's just been waiting for a signal. For rhythm. For breath. For movement. You don't need to be 20 again. You don't need perfect posture or six-pack abs. You need strength where it counts, in the muscles that hold you upright, in the breath that slows your heart, in the walk that says, I belong in this body again. Robert didn't recover because he trained harder. He recovered because he stopped ignoring his foundation. And he started feeding what had gone hungry for too long: his legs, his back, his core, his breath, his blood. And with that, his confidence returned, his connection deepened, and his body began to speak again. You didn't lose your manhood. It's not buried. It's not dead. It's just been quiet. And now, you get to invite it back, not through force, but through nourishment. Not through shame, but through movement. Not through fixing, but through remembering. And if you feel like you're ready to begin again, just know this: you're not alone. There are men all around you reclaiming what was once lost. Silently. Steadily. With every breath. With every step. With every choice to believe that it's not too late to come home to yourself. In just a moment, I'll ask you to make one small move, not for me, but for the man you still are. If you've made it this far, you didn't just watch a video, you answered a call. A call to listen. To feel. To remember the man inside your body who may have gone quiet, but never left. And if something in this message stirred you, if you felt even a flicker of, yes, this is me, then I invite you to say so. Not for me, not for the algorithm. But for you. For your body. For the man you still are. Leave a comment below that simply says, I'm standing up again. That's it. You don't need to explain. You don't need to prove. Just let that one sentence be your signal to yourself, to your blood, to the younger men watching, and to the older men still afraid to speak. And if there's someone in your life, a friend, a brother, a father, a neighbor who's been sitting in silence, thinking this is just how it ends, share this with him. Not as advice. Not as pressure. But as an open door. Because the more we speak, the more we move, the more we reconnect, the more we heal. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not done. You are still here. And your body, it's listening now. So take that breath. Take that first squat. Take that walk. And let the rhythm come back. You're not just waking up muscle. You're waking up everything that makes you feel like a man again. I'm proud of you. And I'll be right here when you're ready for the next step. Dr. Catherine Rocker.